How to make a crochet mitt. This bright orange crochet mitt. Don't know who'd want a bright orange one, but it was just a ball of wood I had to hand. I presume you'll be doing it in a nice shade of pink or baby blue. So we need to do a row of trebles. I've done 22 chain. I need to do a row of trebles. If you're American, I'm in the UK, we call them trebles. If you're American, you'd call them double crochet. So we're going to do the first one into the fourth chain from the hook. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And that first chain there will count as a stitch, so that's 2 stitches. And work all the way along to the end. So I got to the end there, and that's given us 20 stitches if you count that those couple of chains at the end, that counts as a stitch. So that's 20 stitches, and we're going to do a turning chain, either 2 or 3. So I've got to the end there, and that gives us 20 stitches, including those few chain at the end, 20 stitches, and we're going to do a turning chain, either 2 or 3 chain, depending on how loose or tight you do your stitches. You want your turning chain to be the same height as your treble. Turn it round to do the next row, and you work in treble all to the end for the second row. This is just the basic traditional crochet mitt. You don't have to use plain trebles. You could do a fancy stitch if you want. You'd have to work it out yourself. It's not that difficult. This is the wrist end of the mitt. And you could do a plain stitch and afterwards do fancy edging on it if you want to make it fancy. You might want to do one less row if you're making a fancy cuff. You're going to add an extra edging shell stitch or something. Probably do one less row, otherwise your cuff will end up too long. All the way along to the end. Actually, orange isn't so bad really, quite trendy. And don't forget, there's the last stitch, don't forget to work 1 into the top chain. Look at my thumb. That's a mixture of mucking out the log fire. There's ash in there. I've scrubbed, I've had a bath, I've washed my hair and I've scrubbed, it's still mucky. And also chocolate, I've had a chocolate cake. Do excuse me. Okay, so that's 2 rows, and then you do another row, exactly the same as that last row, all the way along. Do your turning chain, turn it all the way along, and don't forget to do a stitch into the top of the turning chain. So I've done 3 rows and a turning chain, and on the next row we're going to make little holes for the ribbon to go through. So miss 1 stitch, treble into the next, or as I said before, double crochet if you're American. Make a chain for the one you're missing, miss a stitch and a treble. 1 chain to replace the stitch you're missing, miss a stitch into the next one, all the way along the row, not forgetting when you get to the end to do your last treble into the top chain of the turning chain when you get to the end. So I've finished that row of holes and I've made 1 chain to turn. You can in fact just do another row of trebles if you prefer, because it is still possible to thread ribbon in between the trebles the spaces are big enough. So we're going to turn. We've done the first stitch, because your turning chain counts as your first stitch. So we're going to do a treble now, or a double crochet if you're American, into the chain space. Treble into the next stitch. Treble into the chain space. Into the next stitch. Into the chain space. All the way along, into the stitch and into the chain space. You do that all the way along till you get to the end. When you get to the end, you'll treble into the chain space, one into the treble, and then either into the chain space or the top of that turning chain for your last stitch. Just check when you get to the end of that row that you have actually still got 20 stitches, and don't forget to count that turning chain as a stitch, just to make sure you've done it properly. And then you need to do 3 more rows of trebles or double crochet if you're American. So you've done your turning chain, turn your work round, miss the first stitch because your turning chain is the first stitch, and work all along doing your trebles for 3 more rows. So once you've done that, you should now have 3 rows of trebles or double crochet if you're American, 1 row where you've missed a stitch, every alternate stitch, and then 4 more rows of trebles. As I said before, if you want, you can miss that row out and just do 8 rows altogether, because you can still thread your ribbon through even if you don't need those holes. There's plenty of space there to thread a ribbon through, or a twisted cord around the wrist. And as I said, if you're going to do a fancy edging around the cuff, miss that row out, don't do that first row, just do 2 rows instead of 3 there. And then just 1 more row now where we're going to decrease to shape the fingers at the tip there. So you do your turning chain as normal. Miss 1 stitch as you normally would, because your turning chain counts as the first stitch, and then treble 2 together. So into the next stitch, pull it through, leave 2 loops on the hook, and again into the next stitch, pull it through 2, and then pull through all 3. And that's your first, sorry, my camcorder keeps moving. There's your first decrease. And then do that again 3 more times. So decrease in the next 2. And the next 2. And in the next 2. So you've decreased 4 times, and then just do 2 straight, 2 trebles there. And again, decrease 4 times in the next 8 stitches, so that's 1, 2 for the first one, that's 2 decreases, three decreases, whoops, and one last one in those last 2 stitches there. And don't forget one last treble into the top of the turning chain. Sorry, I've done that turning chain a bit, that chain a bit tight, so there we go. And there's your mitt. Just need to cut that off and finish off. Find my scissors. There they are. Cut that off. Leave a long end because you can use that for sewing. And just to finish off, pull that through and pull it tight. There's your little mitt. Fold it in half. Use that long end just to sew across the top. Or if you like, you can gather it. I think it'll look a bit better if you gather it. And use your beginning piece of yarn there to sew up the side. So as I said, you can either sew across the top and down the side of your little mitt, or you can gather that top up, which I prefer to do. And to do that, thread up your cut end and just weave in and out of the stitches. At the top there. Pull it through. Tighten it up. Just do one little stitch there to hold it. A couple of little stitches, I mean, just to hold that in place. If that's long enough, of course, you can use that to sew down the side. Or you can take your beginning piece of yarn where you started to work on your crochet and then matching up the rows. Just do an overcast stitch all the way up the side. And once you've done this, turn it the right way round, and then you can either thread a ribbon or something similar. If you haven't got any ribbon, you can make your own twisted cord. I'll show you how to do that. So I've sewn the side up. I just need to get rid of these 2 ends. You can just cut them because they're going to be on the inside and they won't show, but I prefer to darn them in, so just thread them up on your needle. And just darn them in under your under your overcast stitches there for a little way. Whoops, sorry, you can't see that. This needle's a little bit too big for the job. Pull them through. There's my scissors gone. Snip it off. There you go, and just pull them in like that. Excuse me, I've got the needle in my mouth, that's better. And turn the right way round, and then we make our twisted cord. Easy peasy making a twisted cord. You just take a length of yarn, roughly twice the length you want your cord to be. Grasp the end in one hand and twist with between your finger and thumb with the other hand, and always twist in the same direction that the yarn is already twisted in. So just keep twisting. Twist nice and tight, and then keeping hold of the end, get hold there, and then twist another little bit. Alright, you can let go of that now, and then take hold there, always keeping hold of the cut end. Twist a little bit, grasp it there just to stop it untwisting again. And keep doing that all the way to the end. The more you twist it, the tighter your cord will be. Keep hold, you don't want it to unravel. Right, I won't bore you with this because I've got quite a way to go. So I've finished twisting, and as you can see it's quite a mess, and what I'm going to do is just pull it out just to even out the twists, because in some places you will have twisted more than others, and it just helps to even it out a bit. And then get the, see, it will ravel up again, but don't worry about that. Get the two cut ends, hold them together, and then just put your finger in there and pull out those tangles. Oops, sorry. Okay. And let go. It'll go all peculiar again. But don't worry, just keep straightening it out between your finger and thumb. Keep doing that. Whoops, sorry, my camcorder's going all over the place. You can see now that I'm sitting in my car. Yeah, on my lunch break at work. There we go. Let's pull them out nice and neat. Now, if this was I was using as a tie on a cardigan or something to pull two sides of the cardigan together and tie in a bow, I just get the cut ends and thread them through the garment and tie them the other side to hold them in place, and then you've got a nice neat end on it. But because these are going through a pair of booties, sorry, no it's not, a pair of mitts, I'm going to tie a knot there. And I'm going to tie a knot at the other end, just so they match. That is a nice neat end, but we want both ends to look the same, so I'm going to tie a knot in that and trim that off. Trim the other end. And just thread it through our little mitt. In and out through those holes you made, or just in and out if you didn't do the holes, just in and out through the trebles. I forgot to point out that if you're going to do a shell edging along there, if you missed a row out so that you could do a shell edging instead, do your shell edging before you sew the side seams up. There we go. The little mitt. I think I might have done this a little bit too long actually, but no matter, I can always trim the ends off. Whoops. Pull that nice and tight. There's a little mitt. If you want the mitt smaller, you can use a smaller hook. Want it bigger, you can use a bigger hook, and you can also vary the size by using different thicknesses of yarn. There you are, one bright orange baby mitt.